remember everyone in our country with what's going on, the challenging times that we're all facing, present and future. So just take a moment. Thank you. Will you please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Causey, will you please share our mission and vision statement, please?
Good evening, everyone. Students and their achievement must be the focus of our every meeting, our every plan, our every decision. The mission and vision statements of the Robertson County School System are the expressions of what we believe and what we expect. We believe our mission is to ensure each student is prepared to succeed in life. Our vision is that Robertson County Schools will enable all students to reach and exceed high academic and career standards while empowering them to succeed in a technologically advanced and culturally diverse society.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, you see before us a consent agenda. What is your pleasure?
Motion approved.
Motion been made by Mr. Scott Rice and second by Mr. Jeff White. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please vote aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passed 6-0. Up next, do we have any recognition of students, teachers, and achievements?
At this time, we do not, but I will talk about our classified stipends that we mentioned in our last board meeting when it comes to the director's report.
Is Miss Nikki Fields going to be online?
Actually, she's right here.
Okay. Miss Nikki?
Good evening. Thank you for letting me call in. Wanted to give you guys a brief report tonight. Our CEA held our elections in February, and Danielle Frazier was elected as our new president by acclamation. She will be taking office on July 1st. I wanted to take a few minutes tonight to thank each of you for your support of students, educators, our association, and of me over the past 7 years. The past few months have been unreal, but I really appreciate your protection of the health and safety of our students and staff. I will definitely still be around advocating and asking for your support, although you may not see me at every school board meeting. I'm honored to have led the largest local association in Tennessee and honored to have worked with the best school board in Tennessee. And I want to thank you for your leadership and your dedication to education in Robertson County.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
You've done a great job and you'll be missed, so don't be a stranger.
Thank you. I won't be.
Thank you, Ms. Fields.
Thank you.
Personnel reports, Dr. Causey.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have to remember I've been asked specifically to speak up to the microphone. I do want to say thank you to technology, who actually, if you notice, there's no camera out on a tripod like we had last month. We actually are being filmed by that booger up there. And the sound is coming through the sound system, which is also being recorded. We did have a few complaints last month with individuals listening not being able to hear. So I think we fixed that. And that actually does have the ability, Mr. Hurd, to pan the room. So when you're speaking, you might be on camera and everybody else may not be. So I don't know if that leads you to want to talk or not. But just wanted to remind you, if you are speaking, if you'll come up to the mic like I'm doing, because I tend to forget as well. You will notice in your board packet the certified personnel report. HR is starting to get quite busy. Would like to say that we have welcomed Dr. Batson back. She's been out for surgeries and whatnot, and she's back now, and we're ready to get a lot of things going. Want to say thank you to Miss Annette and Miss Monica, Miss Amber for their work over the past couple weeks. But you will notice a total of 53 actions there. 3 retirements, and as I mentioned, and I know a couple of you were able to come by Mr. Barbie's retirement parade that he had. 31 resignations, and remember this time of the year, a lot of those resignations were actually started as non-renewals, and those folks had the opportunity to resign, allowed them to do so. The other resignation would be the transfer outside of county. Then we had 6 leaves of absences, 7 non-renewals, 2 transfers, 1 assignment, and then 3 new hires. But we've hired quite a few more folks than that. It's just we have some that are in the process of onboarding, and then we'll have them in the packet for July. Under the classified personnel, a total of 43 actions, 3 job abandonments, 1 non-renewal, 7 transfers, 8 retirements, and as I mentioned in the board packet, Ms. Jane Liggins there, who is pretty much a staple of Robertson County Schools. And on a personal note, one of the first people I met in the district when I moved here in '95, Mr. Hurd, was Debbie Bell at East Robertson. So she was my neighbor there down the road over on Oregon Road. So the folks are going to be hard to replace. 9 resignations and 15 new hires on the classified side. And that concludes the personnel report.
Thank you. Expense comparison report.
I have to say, you hate for the timeline to happen, but you will notice that it's probably the best we've ever had when you compare it to the end of April of 2019 to the end of April 2020. Expenditures are down all the way to 73.67%, but when you compare those, if you look at electricity, diesel fuel, and gasoline, diesel fuel and gasoline are actually in the 60 percentile or percentage compared to last year's. Insurance is relatively the same, but I do want to bring your attention to revenue. We've heard a lot about sales tax and whatnot. At the end of April, which of course we were knee deep in the pandemic at that point, you will notice that our sales tax is actually percentage-wise of what we budgeted right on target compared to last year. We actually had, I think it was an 18% sales tax increase for March when compared to March of last year. May not be what we budgeted, but it's pretty darn close, isn't it, Sheila? So we always tell people to buy local. One of the things I think being inside allowed people to do was buy local. There were quite a few, I'm sure, Amazons and whatnot, but I think more people shopped Walmart, ClickList, and things of that nature, and it really did help. We don't see May looking a whole lot different. So I think when it comes to sales tax, we can safely say we're looking pretty good, and we won't feel the effect as many other folks are out there are feeling for sales tax. And that concludes the expense comparison report, sir.
Thank you. Next up is approval of the general fund's budget amendment for Carl Perkins. Is that right? No, it's not. I skipped one.
We'll talk about our money, then we'll get to Mark's money.
Okay.
How's that?
All right.
You will see in your board packet general fund's budget amendment. Not too long ago, we had an amendment that was based on an increase of BEP funds based on Tennessee Connections Academy, where we welcome their principal here with us tonight for a later presentation. But that was only part of the funds. They always do kind of a half of the BEP growth funds in early spring, then they do the other half in June. We're not real sure what that other half looks like in June, but we can predict as much as we can predict based on some of the data calculations Mr. Walling and his team does. So you will see that $2.4 million, it's an increase in revenue. We had already approved 1.8, I think for a total of 4.2. And that's quite a bit of funds that we've received. Now you will notice on the other side of that coin, we spent it because a majority of those funds actually goes to Pearson for our virtual school minus a 2% authorization fee or 75,000, whichever is more. So with that being said, we should be keeping about $85,000 when all said and done. Next year, we expect that number to even get larger based on the success of that virtual school. So that is one side of that amendment. The other one is $23,000 that we took from diesel fuel and we put on capital outlay to take care of the box truck that was voted on last month. Folks, I know James isn't in here. He's down being Oz, as he calls himself, in his office, making sure everything works well. Please know that that box truck has become just a save over the past couple months, getting all these laptops in. Once we put a lift on it, it's even going to be better. So I've got a couple of videos I'll share with you of them rolling laptops and into that truck. So thank you very much. But that is the first budget amendment, and I recommend your approval.
Motion to approve.
Motion's been made by Mr. Jeff White, second by Mr. Tommy Mason. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, if you please vote aye for this budget amendment. Say, if you're approved, please vote aye. Aye. Those opposed? Madam Secretary, it passed 6-0. Up next is the Carl Perkins Federal.
Ladies and
Budget
gentlemen,
amendment.
this is, of course, Mr. Mark Gregory and our current technical ed grant that we have. He's probably the best with money that of any of us, and this is just some cleanup from his 1920 budget, as you see that. Just the total increase and decrease. It is a balanced budget at $29,064.70, and I recommend approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made by Mr. Jeff White, second by Ms. Connie Hogan. Any other discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor of this motion, please vote aye. Aye. Those opposed? Madam Secretary, please record it passed 6-0. Up next is under administration is approval of the freshman success special course and senior success special course.
Just to, as Mr. Sanborn gets ready, in the past, anytime that we have a course that any of our schools want to teach that does not have a course code in the Tennessee State course code document that we use, we have to get special permission from the board. Then that would go to the state, and then they would approve it. This is no exception with Tennessee Connections Academy. They have two courses that are part of their, of course, they offer all the ones we do, English and algebra and all those that we're familiar with. But they have two courses, one called Freshman Success, the other one called Senior Success, that we were able to offer last year, but the students didn't necessarily get a credit for it because they had not been approved. So we want to go ahead and get this on the dock for the state so that we can get that approved and these kids can get credit for it this year. But I wanted Mr. Sanborn, first of all, to, introduce himself, and I guess I've done a horrible job at doing that. But just know that he had a very successful graduation a couple of weeks ago. It was different, but it went well, and a lot of parents were very excited to see their kids graduate, even if it was virtually that night. And with that, Mr. Sanborn, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Causey, and thank you, Board and Chairman Hurd. I come to you tonight to get approval of two courses that Tennessee Connection Academy is requesting, which Dr. Causey has already talked about, which is our Senior Success and our Freshman Success courses. The rationale behind this really is to help our incoming ninth graders to have a solid foundation upon which they can build a successful high school experience. And then for the Senior Success course, we want our seniors to be able to navigate the postgraduate world of college and career and ensure a successful transition into their future opportunities. Both of these courses take a lot from an already approved course in the state of Tennessee, which is the Student Success course, which really is a 10 through 12 course, and a lot of the standards are very similar to that course as well, and I've laid those out in the board packet. They connect to the Tennessee State standards through a variety of English standards with 9, 10, and also 11, 12 with those courses. And I also included in the board packet a layout of the course descriptions and all of the different topics that are covered for our freshmen and our seniors. We have seen a huge success, even though these weren't credit-bearing classes this year because they were not approved. It gave our freshmen an opportunity to really understand, and I think it's really helpful for those incoming freshmen to have that opportunity to have a class that really focuses on them. And the senior success course, we want it to count for a credit, and in the future, we're also talking about maybe trying to get that as a graduation requirement for our seniors as well. But at this time, we're wanting to at least get it approved as a credit-bearing class. And if the board has any questions, I'm willing to answer anything you.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you have any questions? Hearing none. Sounds good. Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
Okay. The motion's been made to approve this freshman special course and senior success special course by Ms. Connie Hogan and second by Ms. Wendy Bargatsky. Any discussion?
How long are these courses? Are they year-long or?
No, they are semester courses. They're
Semester?
half credit course.
Okay.
And they're usually both offered in the first semester.
I like it.
Hearing none, those in favor, please vote aye. Aye. Those opposed? Madam Secretary, it passed 6-0.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Up next is approval of athletic trainer services with Star Physical Therapy.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, we have a very long-standing and good relationship with Star Physical Therapy. Many of you all know their services even better than I do. But Mr. Ziegler came to us not too long ago and mentioned the fact that they're at a place now to where they're going to have to start charging. And it's been free for, I guess, a couple of decades? Seems like it's been a long time.
Since Kelly was coaching at Greenbrier High School a long time ago.
Long time ago.
It's been very good. Actually, it was when he was coaching at Springfield too.
Well, and the only thing they ever asked for in return was advertising. It's really about up on the scoreboard, signs, those kind of things. So, of course, when we heard that, automatically had all sorts of figures running through my head. And if you notice in the agreement, for the 2021 school year, it is a total of $32,000. That is actually $5,000 per high school for $25,000 total, and then $7,000 for equipment, everything from bandages to those kind of things. You can tell I'm not in the medical field. Splints, let me spit that out. Yeah, thank you. Anything that those trainers would need. And Mr. Pat Brown and Star have gone through this back and forth a little bit, and it is now at a place to where we feel like we can bring it from the board. You will notice that it does go up 22, 23 to 33,000, but we figured it will continue to go up as we move along. But we've already talked about where these funds would come from, and we feel like we can find a way to amend it and take care of it. And I do recommend your approval.
Motion to approve.
Motion's been made by Mr. Jeff White, second by Scott Rice. Any further discussion?
I just have a statement that this, if you've been around these trainers, and Mr. Mason, I know you have, and I have since whenever they got there, we are getting a bargain. Because they live with those kids at that school, and they care for them probably more than anyone else. And when these young men and women graduate, there is a bond between these trainers and those students. So this is a great deal for the school system, and it's great that we're able to carry this on.
It's
They're always there, day, games, they just.
that's probably the cheapest thing that we have, because that's the same thing as a first responder at these ball games. I mean, they're the first ones on the scene, and whether it's one of our children or one of our opposing teams. You just look at Houston, at the young man at Houston County. Without that young man being there, he wouldn't be here with us. So you can't put a price on it. So I strongly agree with that.
We're still gonna do the advertising, right? We're still offering.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Yeah,
It-
I
and
don't
it's
wanna
in the
charge
contract.
for
Yeah,
advertising.
it's still in the
It's still in there,
contract,
yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
No
Yeah, it's still in
charging
there.
for advertising. And we need to make sure that our different groups know that within the school, because there's many different groups
Correct.
that yeah, that go after money, so.
I agree.
Hearing the discussion, those in favor of this, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Madam Secretary, pass 6-0. Transportation facilities.
We have sometimes it's feast or famine when it comes to transportation facilities, and we have 5 different items underneath that category this evening. The first one, you will see a renewal bid for roof repairs with Weaver Sheet Metal Roofing. All prices will remain the same for the 2021 year, and that is number 1348, and I would recommend our continued relationship with Weaver.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Mr. Scott Rice, second by Ms. Connie Hogan. Any discussion? Those in favor, please vote aye. Aye. Those opposed? Pass 6-0.
Second one you will notice is with Cook's Pest Control, and we've learned a lot more than we need to know about pests, I think, but we've learned a lot about what that does cover and what it doesn't cover, and some of the protocols that we have set aside, not only with the bugs that you're thinking of, with your spiders and those kind of things, but also with bed bugs and whatnot. So we've worked with Cook's now better than I think we've worked with others, and of course, when they come in and they do a treatment that's not covered in the contract, it's going to cost us money. But at the same time, we also understand that they don't necessarily need to come in every time that we have one bug. So we've learned quite a bit. We're very pleased to say that their pricing will remain the same as well. They're pretty quick when we contact them regarding the situation, and I would recommend approval of that as well.
Can I have
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion been made by Mr. Jeff White, second by Mr. Scott Rice. Any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor, please vote aye. Aye. Those opposed? Madam Secretary, passed 6-0.
Next one, board members, is regarding our asbestos service. For a number of years, we had an agreement with Barge and Wagner, and then it became Barge Associates. For the longest time, they did all of our asbestos abatement. A few months ago, we were notified that they let some of their certifications lapse, and they were no longer going to provide that service for us. So we kind of scrambled for, I guess, a day or two and found out that Randy Bell, who is on this document here, actually had left Barge and Associates and had actually had his own, or was part of this GES, Geochemical and Materials Engineers. And so we reached out to Randy, and he took care of the contract for the rest of that particular year, which is over at the end of June. But he did give us a proposal for the 2021 year at a total of $17,800. You notice in the second page everything that it does involve there, and you'll see his name, Senior Geologist. And he's the one that always did it for Barge Associates anyway, so I would recommend your approval. We have a pretty good relationship with Randy.
Second.
Motion been made by Mr. Tommy Mason, second by Mr. Scott Rice. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor, please vote aye. Aye. Those opposed? Madam Secretary, pass 6-0.
The next one, Chairman Hurd, you will see is approval of matching uniform service agreement with Cintas. For quite a while, we've had an arrangement and an agreement with Airmark. Airmark actually had the state contract, and we did learn a few weeks back that they lost their state contract, so we had to start shopping around, and no longer able to continue with that service. We spent quite a bit of funds. So we had some folks that came in and looked at what we actually needed and what we actually had when it came to the mats that you see in front of our doors, as well as some of the uniforms that our folks wear. And so when you look at that, the prices there, those are monthly prices based on total amount. It doesn't include a per delivery charge at each location. It's totally comparable to what we've been paying. Very good customer service for this company right now. Of course, we haven't signed an agreement with them, but without this is only going to be for 1 year anyway. So we would recommend approval of changing from Airmark to Cintas.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made by Ms. Connie Hogan and second by Ms. Wendy Bargatsky. Any discussion?
We know what we spending on average in a year on that line item.
I'd have to look.
I mean, 10,000, 100.
More than 10,000. It's
Yeah, about,
4,200 a month. And we've learned a lot through this process. We learned that we had mats that we didn't need. We learned that we had mats stuck in the closet that we didn't need. So they're actually going to come out and make sure that we only have truly what we need. And on the uniform side, we were getting nickel and dimed a pretty good way the same of different uniforms that we did not need that weren't necessarily being used. So I think in the long run, we're actually going to save more money than this contract is.
That's why there's a lot of hidden
Yeah, exactly.
items
Correct.
in that industry.
Correct.
And they'll charge you.
And I want to give Sheila and Della props because they have combed through, I'd say hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of invoices and lists of things that we still don't understand because of that exact same thing. So
You gotta have a PhD to read some of their invoices. Yeah, it's-
one of the things they promised us is transparency all the way up to going to look at where they do things and where they produce things. So
So the delivery fee's not set.
yeah, there is no delivery fee.
Doesn't include it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's not a, doesn't include the delivery service charge,
Correct.
excuse me, so there's not a service charge that's set.
Right.
There's not one period. Okay.
And we'll have the, uniform selections, we can gauge those on prices and that kind of thing. Give some of our guys some stuff that works a lot better out in the heat.
And they will only sign, they'll give you a 1 year agreement on these uniforms?
Good. So you-
Yeah, because,
They also will go to the plant. They don't bring anything into the school. Once they go out and figure out what everything needs, they won't, unless it's approval from this office, not causing, they won't just add. Airmark will just add. When somebody said, I need 5 mats.
Yeah.
does,
And
does,
4 extra shirts, 3 pairs of pants, that stuff.
does Cintas provide any other service for the system? First aid or anything like that?
I don't think so.
Be cautious. Just be cautious. They're good at hiding cost also, so.
Yep.
The motion's made and second, ready to vote. Those in favor, please vote aye. Aye. Those opposed? 5-4, 1 abstain. I abstained. I can't vote on it. Well, I won't vote for it. Approval of resolution, Bransford Elementary.
This is not in your board packet, but you do have an actual copy at your chair because we just received it this afternoon. Give you a short history, and I'll make it very short, Mr. Hurd, I promise. For the last couple of years, we've been very scared of the Bransford boiler, to be quite honest with you. We have some great videos, everything from the floor being so hot that kids should not walk on it or touch it, to it being very cold in the wintertime and it not having water leaking all over the place. It's, I guess it's 60 years old plus. So with that being said, we started looking out at different options. We did have an option with Train, in which they were going to come in, put units on top of the roof, and make sure that we had HVAC throughout the whole building. That total came to $1.6 million, if you remember. That number was originally, I think, around 1.3, and it ended up being 1.6. At the same time, Coopertown Elementary School, of course, bond was approved. Our original thinking was we were going to be able to take about $800,000 to $1 million from that bond. That project, of course, is increasing. We are looking at renovation budgets right now. We still have money for renovation. Don't think that we don't, but we don't want to eat into that if we don't have to. At the very same time, we reached out to a company, ESG, Energy Systems Group, which is involved with our TOS partnership. And they came out and looked at it just to see what they could do if they had another option. Their thought was putting those units, instead of the very large units, on top of the roof that we just put on brand new and cutting into a brand new roof. They said, why don't you put the smaller units, the classroom units, outside each classroom. They would ductwork inside the window where they have air conditioner units now, and then also replace all of the windows using Springfield glass. You've seen the pictures and some of the things that they'll have to do there, but at the end of the day, that project came in at $1.2 million, which seemed a lot better deal for us. I will also give those teachers a chance to control those rooms as well. So with all that being said, we went to county finance and we asked, okay, right now we're looking at adding, and I go back to Mr. Rice's comment last month when we were talking about saving money. You said, let's spend it on stuff that we needed. We're talking about adding close to $700,000 into our fund balance at the end of this year, based on BEP projections and everything else. We've cut everybody off, right, Ms. Sheila? And we're looking at about $700,000. So we asked, how can we use that money as part of it for Branchford? But then that's not all of it, so we'd have to spend some funds out of general budget for next year, which we'd already pretty much approved at that point. So the idea was given to do a resolution to take that $1.2 million out of our fund balance that we're about to add to. So there's your $700,000, and at the same time, though, know that and let the commission know that that money truly is set aside for Branchford. It's the same thing that we do for our one-to-one devices right now. If you look at our fund balance at the end of every year, we have to take $400,000 out for our one-to-one initiative. It would be the exact same thing. That money could not be touched except for the Branchford project. And considering the situation that we're in, the financial situation that we're in, I think we can't wait another year to do it. That's more than anything else, because we got very lucky with a winter that was very warm this past year. Otherwise, I think we would have been in trouble. So with that being said, they're wanting to get it started as quickly as possible. So by the time the winter does hit, they're going to be working in July. This gets approved, and every break that we have, Branchford's already prepared to start moving kids out of one classroom so that we can do that classroom, and then moving on to the next one, so on and so forth. I don't think we can pass this opportunity up. We've had Clyde, of course, looked at the contract. It is an energy savings contract. It's kind of the same business as other companies, but in this case, we're getting new HVAC windows throughout the entire building. The windows will be a combination of the windows and the silver plates like we have at Westside. And you saw the pictures. I think it will look very nice. And the teachers, of course, are very excited about it. They've been putting up with that steam boiler for a long time. You've got the coils inside the classroom that are too hot to touch, and sometimes don't come on at all. So, like I said, Clyde's looked at it, the contract. Trey was able to look at the project. Trey Fan, county engineer, was able to look at the project, and everybody I've talked to pretty much says it's a good project, and it will fix whatever is over Branchford. And we can do it without touching bond money, and that's the most important thing, honestly. We don't have to pay for it over the next 20 years like with a new school. And if you have any questions, I would be more than happy to entertain them. But I do recommend approval so that we can get this to the Budget Committee and then the County Commission.
Motion to approve.
Motion's been made by Mr. Jeff White, second by Mr. Tommy Mason. Any further discussion?
Okay, you said starting in July, they go ahead and start.
Yes, ma'am.
How long, or do you know? I mean, I just.
I think the goal, and this is why we're kind of in a hurry, the goal would be to get it done by mid-November, so that when it does really get cold, we're pumping heat in those rooms, and we're not having to touch the boiler at all, so. I mean, that's it. With the window units will be the last thing to take out anyway for the ductwork. Most of it would be sitting outside and then getting the new windows in.
Those in favor of this project, please vote aye. Aye. Those opposed, pass 6-0. Director of School report.
And just to put in perspective, not to put this number out there, sorry Sheila, but our fund balance is very, very healthy. And if we're going to do a project like this, this is definitely the time to do it. So thank you all very, very much. Director's report. First of all, considering this is supposed to be a time of hiring people and being pretty quiet, Ms. Mason, I think we're about as crazy as I think we've ever been since we started working together in these positions. But we are vamping up. You all got a copy of the overview, state overview plan of reopening school. Ms. Mason was able to sit in on a call today. And tonight, all day tomorrow, and probably the rest of this week, we'll be getting some updated plans for every scenario known to man from the state. I think it's pretty, the majority of us are wanting the kids back in August, and as many as possible. But we do know that we have a lot of work to do between now and then. Our group is getting together and working on the CARES Act grant that we're excited about. Those funds, both on the technology side as well as the summer camp and extended school year and all those things that we're going to have to do to catch our kids up. This afternoon, I know you all have already mentioned it, a couple of you have, at 4 o'clock, we sent out a survey because, if you remember back in March, we sent out the survey that said, do you have internet, do you have electronic devices, and that was tied to a child, but now we're tying it to a child and an address, and our goal is to get 100% participation. That way we know exactly who needs what, where they live, how does that affect transportation. All of those pieces are put together, and hopefully we'll be sending out those that do not fill that out next week to make sure that we have 100% information relatively quickly. That is all on right now on the back to school plan, but just know that there's 3 major philosophies out there. 1, everybody comes back to school. 2, everybody stays at home and we do virtual. And the 3, there's about 81 variations of number 3, which means a combination of everything from AB days to some kids come, some kids don't. And you can imagine all the different thoughts out there. But just know that we don't think the state's going to make a blanket statement like they did when they canceled school.
That's what I was fixing to ask you. What is the rumors going on?
We've been told more times than we can count that the reopening of school will be a local decision. I think what gets us in trouble is when we're doing something, Sumner County's doing something totally different, and then Cheatham County's doing something even totally different from that. So I'm on a call with Mid-Cumberland superintendents every Friday, and that's the number 1 topic. And I know I let you all know this, but we lost Dr. Gilbert, Murfreesboro City Director of Schools, and she was a big proponent of the whole child, meaning that academics is one thing, but we have a lot of children out there that are coming back to school in August, and they are scared, and they are afraid of what may or may not happen to them at school, and it's not the bully anymore. It's, will I get sick and not be able to recover? We have a lot of kids that are having that conversation with their parents now. We're having a lot of teachers having that conversation that are a little concerned about their health. So just know there's a lot of voices there, and we have a leadership group that's talking about the CARES Act. We have a group that's talking about school reopening. That also involves technology and everybody else. So a lot of people, a lot smarter than I are weighing in on that decision.
Conversation about the calendar, you know, I mean, I've heard some universities, they're not gonna take a fall break. They're gonna go straight through and then be done, and then come back, and I'm just wondering if those conversations are going on.
It is, and we've already, of course, we've been granted the waiver that waived 180 days for the 1920 school year. We did that relatively quickly because we all had to have it. But then the second waiver will be to waive the 180 days for the 2021 school year, because by law, you have to be in school 180 days. So with that being said, we'll get that waiver, and then we'll have the ability to kind of do what we want to do. But I do know that breaks will become very important because we'll have to clean during those breaks. So as far as, I know one thought out there is, you know, I know even in PSU, the last letter we got regarding where Madison is, they're taking that week of Thanksgiving, and they're not coming back until January. Because that's kind of prime flu season, it's sickness season. But I think if we take care of those, and get those electrostatic cleaners that ABM's working on for us, we may not.
I think the issue is people go out of town.
Yeah. And then bring it back.
That's the whole purpose. Clean all day, it's not on the surface.
When the first one comes in, it's not clean anymore.
That's right, you're wasting your time.
Well, one thing I would love to see us go ahead and get some information out, and maybe that's just through discussion, through just planning stages. And I'd love to be involved in, just if I could listen to some of the planning that's going on with the reopening. I think cleaning is a major topic that parents are going to want to know. I think that they want to know something as soon as possible because, you know, they're already planning for next year. And then, you know, we had a conversation about temp scanners and let them know, these are some of the things that we're looking at now. We hadn't bought them yet. But these are things that we, you know, that are options we're looking at now to make sure we're doing everything we can to protect and save and keep safe our kids. And, you know, if we go through all of that and do everything we can, there's nothing else we can do.
I think along those lines, you know, making guidelines of, this is our staff, you know, that 14-day period before school starts. I would try not to be in Mexico the week before school starts.
When you say August, is that just like the schedule is set up
Yes, sir.
for?
Yes, sir.
You know, how much talk has it been to delay the start as far as these?
That's one of the many conversations we've had. You know, the question is, what's the difference between August the 4th and September the 4th, is really. So some people are suggesting we wait until after Labor Day, which is the way it used to be, you know, way back in the day that most people remember. But what would that extra month give us? It wouldn't get us out of the flu season, you know, it wouldn't get us out of, not a whole lot difference, and we've already got kids that are 5 months behind, so if we can bring them back in August, we're gonna try to bring them back in August.
If you were to do a staggered or abbreviated schedule, if that's what it came to, 2 days on, 2 days off for a certain group of kids, what would their expectations be the 2 to 3 days that they were not in school?
It would be the hybrid. It would be you're in school for 2 days and you're virtual for the other 3, with the same expectations of those that are at school during that time.
But more so than what we did this last
Absolutely.
8 or
Yeah,
9 weeks.
absolutely. I think the culture shock would be, this is not the way it was back in March, April, and May. This is 4th grade, this is the expectation. And that's why the technology is very important, so that we know what kids don't have internet. So if they need to log on and actually participate virtually with their peers, then that assignment can look relatively the same, based on the help that the teacher can give them. Yeah. Which means it's 4th grade.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I mean,
I wish we could CMC to get us people out in the country some internet. That'd be great.
Well, I've talked to, I don't know who it was, whether it was a realtor or someone else, that now internet is just like, is, when you're looking at a home to buy it, do you have gas or city water or what? Now, it's, the internet is one of the vital selling points. Devices. You know, our high school, 9 through 12, 1-to-1. Metro is going to spend, buy 90,000 units for all their students. What kind of stimulus money and stuff?
It's one of the reasons why we can't get the ones we've already ordered, I'm sure, probably. But we have $1.6 million for the CARES Act that we're applying for now. I don't want to call it guaranteed, but as long as we fill out the application, it's pretty much guaranteed. Most of that money will go towards technology, meaning 8th grade, 7th grade. We're trying to drop down that grade level of who's got devices. And then when you look at the elementary age, then you're not necessarily talking about laptops. It's how many iPads, how many other things do we have that we can get in their hands. And we're doing a collection of how many total we have, so that if we have to pull them from the cars and take care of a particular grade level, that's what we're going to do. So, but we're not going to waste money on buying things that we already have. So right now, the first thing is making sure we have an inventory of what we have.
And like you said, that's going to be a rush throughout the state on electronic devices.
And from China, no less. So then you add the other, and I know Mr. Marshall's listening, but our Lenovo's are coming from China. But we've been assured that, and I'm talking about the ones that the freshmen are getting. Forget about the new ones, the ones the freshmen are getting, that we ordered in plenty of time. We've been assured they'll be here by the end of June. But I'm not holding my breath. All right.
Going back, with if you had an abbreviated staggered program, how will that affect athletics and stuff like that?
A school day is a school day. So I think athletics, and we're talking about practices and whatnot. I think right now our guidance is, we've got small groups practicing, we've got groups practicing away from other groups. We'll see what the guidelines are there, but come Friday night, I think they'll have football game. I think it may look a little different. You think about graduation tickets, may end up with, so many tickets for football games. But if we do have to stay away from each other, we have to wear masks. I think a lot of folks are wanting to get back to normal, but you have to do that along with the fears of other folks. So what's that look like? I think you can take a trip to Walmart to find out that everybody's going to want to be there on the Friday night football game. And I'm going to tell you right now, more questions than answers, but
We just
I'm not.
talk about it all night,
Yeah.
but it's not going to,
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Well, but that's one thing we need to be talking and discussing, because people out in the public are asking us every day, what's going to happen?
Right.
And, I looked at that 64 pages from the State Department, and I said, well, we're either going to go part-time, no time, or full-time.
Full-time. Yeah, that's pretty much the three package. Yeah, you're
I
right.
didn't have to read the 64 pages to come up with that, but.
Well, but if you notice, every single decision has about 82 different things that you got to be concerned about. So when we talk about any child who doesn't feel safe coming to school, or any teacher not feeling safe coming to school, what are we going to do to make sure that they're involved and they're learning and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing? So that's really the direction that Robertson County is leading towards. I think the AB schedule could get pretty rough. That I do know that's out there, where half of your kids come on Monday and the other half come on Tuesday. I think that's a transportation nightmare. I think there's a lot of things. We were talking about mid-Cumberland superintendents, we're talking about adding routes, and their statements, just like ours, adding routes and buses right now. I don't have drivers for the routes and buses that I have. So, I mean, you can imagine the amount of funds that it would take to do that.
Well, I brought up what I did because I remember the article in the Tennessean where they were talking about Robertson County being ready, and they were not sitting around. They went virtual and they started. And I just assumed the next statement say Robertson County was ready for the next step, and us have a lot of this planned out and ready to go as much as we can.
It's in the works.
Yeah.
Definitely in the works. Just to continue, as I mentioned earlier, the stipend, if you remember last month, the board voted to give a stipend to the transportation and school nutrition, and it was asked to look at our classified folks that had also been there on the buses or packing lunches. I'm pleased to say that stipend is coming in their June check under 2 tiers. We do have those classified folks that were there the 2 days a week or possibly the 3 days a week when that schedule started. However, we do have some folks that have been there since day one, riding it every day. Those folks are going to get approximately $500 in their June check. The other folks that were put on the schedule will get $250. So that gives everybody a little bit something. Right now we're just conferring with administrators to make sure that the folks that they gave me on a list truly went above and beyond what others did. And those are the folks that are going to get a little bit more. But otherwise, you get into the weeds, and I just want to make sure that we did do that. The total cost will be, I think, about $40,000 when all is said and done. So that's exciting. Just to let you know, Cooper Elementary School, I shared some pictures with you. That bi-weekly meeting is Wednesday at 10 o'clock. They have them twice a month. I said bi-weekly, I guess twice a month, better way to say that. That project's come along nicely. We got a whole week of no rain, and that office admin suite, I think you'll see bricks on it, relatively soon. We're pretty excited about that. The big pad for that front wing is about to be poured as well. We had some unsuitable soils to take care of. I think you all may have seen some of those change orders, but I think that pad will be poured relatively quickly. Just remember, of course, with graduations, let me know if you plan on being at one other than the one that your area is for. We did meet this morning. We had a great meeting with our high school principals this morning via a Teams meeting. I just work on any of those questions that come up. Everything from do babies need to take it to, just different things that you have to worry about. So we're working through those, make sure they're consistent. Budget related, the 16th next week is the public hearing. We will be there to entertain any questions that the public might have on that phone call. And of course, all of their meetings are still go-to-meeting right now. They're virtual. And then the commission will vote on our budget on the 22nd of June. Scheduling-wise, July 4th will hit us before our next board meeting, and July 3rd is the observed holiday for that, and office will be closed. And that concludes my report. I said I was going to be quick. I apologize.
Any other old business that needs to be addressed at this time? Any new business to be brought up at this time? I had something, but it went that away. It went. Comments by board members. Start with Miss Wendy.
Well, I was just thinking when I was driving over here that I've had a lot more comments from my community than I've had the whole time since I've been a board member. Some of them good, some of them woo. But it's been good to have, conversations and things like that. So.
Mr. Tommy,
I'm good.
how many more meetings have you got with us?
Pardon?
How many more meetings do you have with
I
us?
don't know, when's the last one? I can count them up.
July, August.
Okay.
What?
July, August, and that's
July?
it.
That's two.
Ms. Connie?
But if y'all want to see me anytime, call me up, and I'll be glad to come down to a meeting, maybe once a year.
Once a year. You really gonna miss us, right? It says once a year.
I won't miss y'all anymore.
He's honest tonight, isn't he?
Okay, was it my turn now?
Yes, it's your turn. You're up.
No, I was just gonna mention, you know, I've never done this, the graduation for one that we had last Wednesday was really neat. He was leaving this Monday, today, to go to the Marines, and that was a nice, really nice thing, I think. I think he enjoyed it a lot, as well as his parents, but, and then the other thing is, poor Mr. Barbie, I hate for him to know that we're now gonna fix the heat and air, because bless his heart, how many years has he put up with it, you know, I feel bad, but.
He has been
like-
involved in some of the planning, but.
Do you know what he did tell me? I went by, the retire, and he told me he was going to sub 2 days a week. Now, whether he will or not, I don't know, he may change his mind.
He may be there full time.
Yeah, no, he said 2 days was his limit, but anyway, that's it.
Scott?
I hate them on missed graduations. I had a trip planned for that, so I hate them. And I may be back in time for the Monday,
Okay.
but, I hate them on miss those.
Well,
It'll be different times,
it will be.
for sure.
We've learned a lot about how we can wirelessly produce sound than I ever thought we would have. But we've learned a lot that will allow us to do this in the future as well.
There's a lot of questions out there. I just wish we all had answers, which we don't.
Me and you
You
both.
know, it's gonna be, interesting the next 60 days, that's for sure.
I'm in the same boat as Mr. Rice. I will be out of town and not returning. I possibly will make the Sunday graduation, and I'll be there on Monday night. But don't exactly know what time we're gonna get back yet, so. I hate that I'm not gonna be able to be at them, but I will be at the ones that can.
I've been
Wait, give my ticket to somebody else.
No transfer of tickets. We've already entered.
Oh, man. I was going on Facebook tonight, putting it for sale.
You can probably scalp it pretty well.
All money's go to charity.
I'll actually be out, I'll be here on the Sunday and the Monday, but I'll be out of town for the other three.
Got you written down.
So we'll,
I
you other people do double duty.
I have been keeping a close watch with the Weather Channel for the past 10 days, 14 days, with stuff at home on the farm, and knock on wood, next weekend is less than 10% chance of rain every night, so that's looking good.
Can you just make that order now? Then we'll take it.
I've been talking to Nancy and all the others, weather people in Nashville, and they say they've got us covered.
Okay, that's good. I will tell you, we told principals this morning, our number one goal is to keep it on the day off. If we've got to dance around the weather, we've done it at Queenborough numerous times.
Not really.
If we have to dance around.
Really? We always ask for no rains.
Yeah, and it works.
It either rains before or after.
Rain or heat. I will tell you, rain or heat.
Yes.
If we do have to move some times for a day, based on rain or heat, that's what we do. I know there's one school that had original graduation planned for 6. They ended up having it at about 8:30, but they took care of it. So, and I think it was wherever it was.
The one that I worry the most about is Heritage.
Yeah, so do we.
That's,
And the time was placed really because a lot of people, folks were back in church. But if we have to go down to the 4 o'clock, it'll probably be hotter than 2 o'clock. So, but if we have to move to the evening, that's exactly what we do. Yeah, that's what we'll do.
I will be attending East Robertson and Joe Burns. I have children and extended family at both of those schools. I figured I'd claim a ticket that I didn't.
Children?
Extended.
Yeah,
Children.
but you said children, and
That's on camera.
Okay.
Just saying.
Yeah, I just wondered, I was just asking, okay.
They're just like children. They're like family. I will be in spirit with the other 3 schools, thinking to those high school seniors and wishing them well into the future. We talk about what our seniors have missed, and we are doing our best to try to give them some closure. I want them to have as much closure. I don't want to see this rushed through. If they're there, we're exposed. Let's let them enjoy their moment, their second of fame. As we're seeing, college is not going to be much better when they start this fall. They're going to miss out on everything except basically education. Are the sororities, are the football games, all those things. Are they going to be able to do that? Unknown. So
How about my tickets?
unknown. So I'm listening to one that is planning on being out of Robertson County's hair in 10 days. And I'm saying it's not going to be a lot different when you go west from here. So, but I will be in spirit with all of these seniors. Any other?
If I can leave the meeting on a very positive note, and I think I shared a picture, and I meant to bring this up in director's report. As Mr. Heinerman has always done, he acknowledged those drivers that had perfect attendance for the entire year. There were 25 of them. And these are, most of these drivers were the ones that volunteered on day one. And if I can have like 20 seconds, I want to read names real quick. Joseph Bruton, Linda Carson, Vicki Kaywood, Terry Deal, David Eden, Diana Fraley, Ricky Henderson, Charles Hilliard, you all know Mr. Charles, Mike Hughes, Harold Jones, Frida Lane, Willie Mason, James Moulton, Karen Peters, Jeff Peterson, Samantha Smith, Lance Stapleton, Jennifer Sullivan, Bill Thomas, Lorenzo Thomas, Wayne Thomas, Ralph Toothman, Miss Laura Wiles, Johnny Wood, and Clinton York. He had a cake for them, of course, back last week. Miss Mason was able to attend and just had not a whole lot of social distancing there. There were quite a few people, but they had a chance to celebrate those drivers because it is a big deal.
I hear a lot of the same names from the last, yes. Very good.
So when we can really get them together, I would like them to bring back here, and we'll take them to lunch, which is what we usually do every year. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
I should have mentioned this in a moment of silence. One of our bus drivers at East Robertson, Miss Amelia Bernard, lost her mother one day last week. And Mr. Joe Swan, former IT guru with James T., lost his mother last week. So should have thought of those during the moment of silence. I'm going to call this meeting adjourned.